What's going on, everybody? This is Rich of Review Tech USA, and as you know, Apple had its conference today announcing its new iPods and iPhones. And I gathered a bunch of information from CNET and John Rettinger from Techno Buffalo. Got to give a shout out to both of them. That's where I got my info from. And once I'm done telling you about the new products, I will give you my take on them and what I think about what Apple gave us today. Also, keep in mind, this is not a full reiteration of the conference. I'm talking about what caught my eye and what I found interesting. So let's begin. The iPod Nanos are not changing aesthetically. They're actually keeping them the same. They will have 16 new watch faces for them. Yay! They're going to have two models. The 8GB one is going to be $129. The 16GB model is going to be $149, and they are available now. You don't have to wait till October 12th to get them. So if you like the iPod Nanos, which I must say I personally do not, you can go to a store right now and pick up the new versions. The iPod Touch is now available in black and white. It has the same Retina display as it did last year when they launched a new model, 720p video recording. It will have iOS 5 when they drop iOS 5 on October 12th. And no, the new iPod Touches did not get the dual-core A5 chip, in case you are wondering. They will have an 8GB model for $199, a 32GB model for $299, and a 64GB model for $399. Jesus, $399 for an iPod. And these are going to launch on October 12th. So if you want a new iPod, you only have to wait for a little more than a week to get one. And now on to the belle of the ball, the newest iPhone. You wanted an iPhone 5? You're not getting it. You wanted a 4G version of the current iPhone? You're not getting it. You're getting an iPhone 4S, a refined, more powerful version of the iPhone 4. So let's talk about the iPhone 4S. Well, it looks exactly the same as the iPhone 4. They changed a lot inside and changed nothing on the outside. The antenna system looks indistinguishable from the iPhone 4, but it has been improved. Supposedly, you can get faster download speeds due to it. According to Apple, 2 times faster download speeds, 14.4 megabits per second with HSDPA. It will have an A5 dual-core processor, the same one used in the iPad 2, 7 times faster graphics, and even with all this, Apple claims that you could get 8 hours of 3G talk time and 10 hours of video playback. So Apple is claiming that even with this huge hardware boost, the iPhone 4S will still have plenty of battery life. Now let's talk about the iPhone 4S's camera and camcorder capabilities, because Apple gave it a complete overhaul. The iPhone 4S boasts an 8 megapixel sensor, which gives you 60% more pixels than the iPhone 4. The CMOS sensor also has backside illumination, which gives you 73% more light than the previous sensor. It's also going to give you image stabilization, flash. It will be 33% faster than the iPhone 4's camera, and with the A5 processor's built-in image processor, it will have auto face detection and 26% better auto white balance. And last but not least, the biggest announcement, at least to me, is that the iPhone 4S will now be available on Sprint. No, I am not screwing up and giving you misinformation. If you are a Sprint customer, you will now be able to own Apple's coveted cell phone. They also talked a lot about iOS 5, and the biggest change that's going to come with iOS 5 is their new AI voice activation system called Siri. What Apple is claiming that you could do with this new voice activation system is talk to it naturally. Instead of talking to the iPhone 4S like you do current voice activation systems like Call Wife Now, you can say, remind me to call my wife at 4:30 about dinner. You can also ask it to read back your latest text messages, and ask it to give you the fastest way home from your current location. If Apple could pull this all off with Siri, it will be amazing, but it still remains to be seen if Siri will live up to their promises. So those were all the things that were important to me about the Apple conference today. Now you're probably wondering, Rich, what the hell do you think of them? Well, let's start off with the iPod Nano. I think the revision they made last year to it is terrible. I hate that chiclet design. I know a lot of people that bought them and don't like them. I really wanted to see them do a complete overhaul of the Nano, but I guess not. And plus, the prices of the Nano are insane. $129 for 8 gigabytes and $149 for 16 gigabytes? Apple, you have to realize there's a lot of competition out there that makes comparable, if not better, products than the Nano. And they're going for like $69 and $99, offering the same amount of storage and virtually the same amount of features. My personal opinion on the Nano is I can't stand it. I think it's a gimped MP3 player, and there's a lot of other better options out on the market. Apple, you have to realize it's not 2004 anymore. A lot of companies, at least with your lower end iPod products, have caught up with you. You want to keep them down the way it is, that's fine, but lower the price, or else you're going to get your ass handed to you, at least when it comes to the entry-level MP3 market. Now on to the iPod Touch. A lot of people were disappointed they didn't upgrade the hardware, they didn't give it the dual-core A5 processor, they didn't improve the graphics processor, the HD camera remained the same. Minus the new white color, it really is the same iPod Touch from last year. And hardware-wise, I think that's fine. Apple has to have a gap between the iPod Touch in terms of its capabilities and the iPhone 4S. If they made the iPod Touch as capable as the iPhone 4S, that could drive a lot of sales away from the phone. And that's where Apple makes most of its money, so they had to have a gap in performance. But what I am gonna bash Apple for is the insane pricing of the iPod Touch. Apple $200 for an 8GB iPod Touch is absolutely insane, especially now when people could go out and buy an Android phone that has many of the features of the iPod Touch for $99, $109. Hell, my BlackBerry just died. It just died a couple days ago, and I got rid of Sprint and went over to Virgin Mobile and got an LG Optimus V Android phone for $109, and it does virtually everything that the iPod Touch does. Not as well, but it does it. It's a great phone. And that's the damn point, Apple. Get it through your head. If people can go out and buy an Android device that does everything that the iPod Touch does, and it's their cell phone, and they can get it for cheaper than your entry-level model that has virtually no memory in it. 8GB today is like 512 megabytes in 2004. You'll have to keep deleting crap on your entry-level iPod if you get the $199 model. I personally would have liked to see the entry-level iPod go for $150, the 8GB model, the 32GB model go for $250, and the 64GB model, which still is an insane price, even with the price cut I'm about to mention, I would like to see that go for like $349. Apple, you'll still make a profit. I know those things are built at Foxconn in China for next to nothing. Give me a break. Don't get me wrong. I think the iPod Touch is the best multimedia product on the market, hands down. And I'm not a big Apple fan, but I think if they want to keep the market penetration that they have to cut the prices of their iPod Touch models. Period. End of discussion. Now on to the iPhone 4S, which a lot of people were very disappointed with. All I kept hearing from everybody is,
dude, bro, they gotta be kidding me. There's nothing different about it. It looks exactly like the iPhone 4. This sucks. What did Apple do? Seriously.
Let's see. They added a dual-core processor with double the speed, 7 times the video processing performance, an 8-megapixel CMOS sensor with 1080p video recording capability. The point being, I already talked about the features much earlier, they changed a lot with the iPhone 4S. Just because it doesn't look different doesn't mean the iPhone 4S isn't a big leap. I think that's the thing that drives me nuts about the Apple fan base. They're so concerned about the aesthetics. Not everyone who enjoys Macs and Apple, but a good majority of them. I think the iPhone 4S was perfect for 2011. It was an evolution in the smartphone. It wasn't a revolution. Apple did the things that were needed to keep up with the market and to become king of the smartphones again. I understand it's Apple and that's what its fan base does, but I really think people overhyped this press conference way too much, and I really think everyone had Tim Cook under a huge microscope because Steve Jobs is gone and he is the new CEO of Apple. The bottom line is, I'm impressed with all the hardware updates and refinements in the iPhone 4S. And Apple doesn't need to always make a shiny new toy that looks totally different to wow everybody. If that's the only reason you like Apple is because their stuff looks nice, you really need to take a step back and think about what you're spending money on. So my final verdict is this Apple press conference was not a failure. Was it super exciting? No. Could the prices of their iPods went down significantly? Yes. And does Tim Cook look somewhat like Mr. Rogers? Yeah. But what Apple did do right is take the necessary steps to evolve the iPod and iPhone brands. And if you look past all the hype, that's all they needed to do. Now, what are your thoughts on the Apple conference? Did you think it was a complete disappointment? Or are you like me and expected and appreciated all the advancements Apple did with their products? Make sure to rate, comment, favorite, and subscribe. And as always, thank you for supporting Review Tech USA.